let's start off, and I want to ask you this, quick question, because this is why we're here. Why, not why did you become a filmmaker, but why are you a filmmaker? Let's start with Chris. Yeah, let's start with Chris.
Going deep already, right?
Yeah. Why are you a filmmaker?
That's a really good question. You had to go with me first.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess the stupid simple answer is to tell stories, but I think I want people to have some kind of reaction, I guess, have some kind of emotion. So through that, I help people try to escape and get away from just the reality of everything, and to even these shorts just for 10 minutes, just to have an escape and either laugh, cry, scare. I usually do horror, as you can tell. So that's usually that as well. I love to write. That's my thing, writing and directing. And I think as a writer, you just you write to learn about yourself and the world around you. And I think that's where it all comes out, and just expressing my inner self, because these are all personal stories that we tell, and that stuff that's deep inside that's coming out to tell everybody. So
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Thank you. Anyone else want to answer? Emilio? Oh,
Hello. Hi. Okay, cool. I want to say I'm a storyteller first, filmmaker second. I mean, if it wasn't for film, I'd be just writing them down still. Instead of a screenwriter, I'd be just a writer. I want to say I got into filmmaking because I wanted to hang out with friends, and and so I wrote. Basically, the best way of putting it is I write for myself, and then hopefully people like it.
Oh yeah.
And so I write comedy, as you can tell. I've tried horror a couple times, and it just got weird.
But there are great horror comedies that are out now.
Yeah. I wrote one. It was called Baby Teeth. It was great. It's like a puppet serial killer thing. People asked me if I was crazy or not. But as I was saying, I love filmmaking because it's like one of the more fun art forms. I like giving opportunities to other filmmakers. I'm a writer-producer mainly. I'm not a writer-director because I want more people to direct my projects because I want to see how their vision changes it. I did that with Daniel Hagler, who directed Forest of Fools. I did that with Juan Pantoja, who directed Dead End Job, and I just continue doing that.
That's perfect. All right, Sean, you want to tell us? Why are you a filmmaker?
Hello? Yes. So, I have enjoyed movies literally my entire life. I was actually born on Friday the 13th, so piece of the puzzle right in place there. As far back as I can remember, as bad as it sounds to say, because you don't say plop your kids in front of a TV, but that was kind of how us Gen Xers grew up. So I watched TV, I watched movies, I memorized TV, I memorized movies, I used inspirational quotes from movies, the Rocky quotes in all of the films. They have dug me out of some really deep, dark places in my life. They've helped me get past some tough times in my life. And I decided that I want to be a part of hopefully providing that to somebody else.
Dude, you had me at Gen X. As soon as you said Gen X, I mean, our entire childhood was a horror story.
That's right.
All right, Albert.
It's definitely not the money. I have a very odd love-hate relationship with film, honestly. I buy into it a little too hard. When I watch a movie, I get kind of sucked into it, and then I also pay attention to every little detail, and then I start to hate it. So from a young age, my mother used to take me to the movies once a week since I was 8. And it didn't matter what we were seeing. Like an 8-year-old watching Basic Instinct is kind of weird, but she suckered into it. She really believed the art of cinema. She really pointed those things out to me, I guess that's just maybe from a handicap on her own self in terms of not really being artistic in that sense. And so for me, it's not about really like sharing anything personal, I guess. Like there is an element of personability in it for me. Like I put my heart and soul into it, and I expect certain things, and I look at the beauty of a certain shot, or maybe like just the small mannerism of an actor or anything like that. But to me, it's more of like doing something that I couldn't do in real life. So I like these, not so much like out of this world stories, but these really grounded stories that kind of connect with my childhood a little bit. And I grew up kind of, if anybody knows me, I grew up kind of rough. So like an inner city kid in Brooklyn, you know, not a whole lot of money. So that was kind of like the escape. And so kind of fell in love with it from a young age. And then, you know, as you get older, you kind of fall out of it for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then you realize, oh wait, you know, I'm miserable because I don't do it.
Yeah.
And so you like kind of go back to it. But for me, it's more of just, I've always paid attention to film. I've always analyzed film. I've watched movies on a daily basis. I still watch movies on a daily basis. I mean, I've seen stuff that probably nobody should ever see because they're just so off the wall and so like under the radar. But to me, it's a real deep appreciation for the art in itself and the fact that you work with such a constraint. So, and a lot of filmmakers, you know, you see a big budget movie and you're like, that's what I want to be. But I look at it more like, all right, how did they get this done without spending, you know, breaking the bank? And to me, that's like the appeal of it is like that brain challenge, that constant, like how can we make this work and make this look in a way where somebody can relate to it on top of also like making it look really cool or making it look like it can tug on a certain heartstring. So to me, it's a hodgepodge of things, but it's really just, it's just in my DNA.
Well, dude, you had some kick-ass scenes in there, literally kick-ass scenes, and the Piper, man, that was great. And that voice, you know, from your lead actress, that was just, that's her true voice, right?
That is her true voice,
her real voice.
That is her voice.
Yes, yes. All right, and last but not least, we have Sydney Carlson, who is a UCF film student, and she's representing for the ladies up here. So a round of applause for Sydney. And Sydney, as a UCF student right now, tell us why you are a filmmaker.
So, I mean, I've learned from this panel that filmmakers are created in childhood, apparently. I'm the same way. My dad and I would always go to the movies. We were big, like, Marvel fans, you know. Every time there was a Marvel movie, we're like, oh, okay, we're gonna go to the midnight premiere. Okay, that's happening. But yeah, I really like, you know, obviously storytelling is the basis of filmmaking, but I like how films kind of create this escape, even when you're going to like a movie theater. For that hour and a half that you're in there, you're in a completely different world. You're not thinking about, oh, I have to go to work later, or what am I gonna cook for dinner? Maybe you are, because, I don't know, you're not fully in it then. But most of the time, when you're going to the movies, you're being immersed in this world, and I think that's really magical. I think that's real life magic, and I wanted to, you know, try out and create my own stories and allow other people to be immersed in my own thoughts.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We're going to hold on you also right now. Quick question. So, as a film student, what have you learned the most about filmmaking?
Well, UCF is a great school for filmmaking. It's kind of doesn't get like a lot of rep for that, but I think they taught me a lot. I mean, when I went in there, I was mostly a photographer. I didn't do anything with filmmaking. It was just like, you know, creative portraits and all that. But at UCF, they really taught me, you know, this is how you format a script, and then this is what you do in pre-production and production, post-production. And I mean, you could probably learn some of that online, but I really liked how you kind of build a community with your classmates, and these people are going to be with you for the rest of your lives. Like, a lot of my film friends were working on each other's films, we're kind of bouncing ideas off of each other, and yeah, they basically taught me how to make a film, which is very valuable considering that I want to be a filmmaker.
Good, good. Use that UCF bubble, you know,
Yes.
and grow. You know, Issa Rae said, find your crew and grow with your crew. So keep doing that. We're very proud of you. Very proud of you. All right, so let's talk influences. So I could probably rattle off a few, you know, just based on, you know, some of the films that we watch. But, you know, tell us quickly, Emilio, who are some of your influences?
Optimus Prime, Roger Rabbit. Basically, my childhood is just a bunch of cartoons, and that just influenced me in that way. I never really thought about who the writers were. I mean, I do read a lot of plays. Forest of Fools was inspired by Waiting for Godot, and that's it.
Okay, okay. All right. Chris, who are some of your influences?
Good question. Well, I do a lot of horror, so I'm a big horror fan. So I go back to like 70s, 80s horror slasher movies and stuff like that. Although mine aren't really horror slasher. So I like, you know, Halloween's one of my favorites. Movies, because they did that movie with hardly any blood, and it scared the crap out of me when I was a kid. So that is one of my all-time favorite horror movies. Filmmakers, I love Edgar Wright stuff. I'd always want to shoot something like his. I think he's very creative as a writer and director. Who else? When you ask this question, my mind goes blank. So, right? I know. I felt bad for you, Emilio. I'm like, oh, thank God he went first.
Is anything horror, really? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, anything horror. I do like to write horror comedy, so I've been going down that road for a while too. I made my TV pilot Saving Ozzy off of watching Santa Clarita Diet on Netflix. That show really got me. Right now I follow a writer, his name is Michael Jamin. He's a comedy writer.
Yep.
And he's super talented, which is funny because I do write comedy, but it does cross over. It doesn't matter who they are, it's still, they're still a storyteller either way. So I follow him a lot.
Horror comedy, you're still creating emotion. You know, it's just a different emotion.
Yeah, it's more of a niche that you're niche down quite to horror comedy. You ride that fine line about with the horror comedy there, but
Yep. All right, Albert.
That's a loaded question. Despite, even though like the majority of my career, even when I did work on studio production, it's been action. I think the film that actually inspired me, believe it or not, was Back to the Future.
Oh.
So Robert Zemeckis, I was a big Robert Zemeckis fan. It's actually a perfect movie, believe it or not. It has no mistakes, which is kind of crazy given the fact that they had to shoot it twice. I think Robert Zemeckis was the start. Steven Spielberg, you know, as a kid you grow up. But I think the thing that really hooked me was a cinematographer called Wally Pfister.
Mm-hmm.
He shoots probably some of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life, and that really kind of dove me into the world of like these avant-garde directors that started becoming mainstream directors. So I was following Christopher Nolan from Following when he did his first thing. I'm showing my age, even though I look really young. And then it went into Denis Villeneuve is another big influence of mine. Like I've watched him since he was doing his shorts on the pancake stack houses and like the grindhouse and stuff like that. And those people kind of really inspired me because they did a lot with nothing, and their stories always just sucked me in. I've always loved Danny Boyle. I've always loved David Fincher. Like I pull from different people, so a lot of the things that influence me tend to be on the grittier side, like the darker kind of area. But they're always like really, really grounded, and sometimes they have a happy ending, sometimes they have a bad ending. I think the movie that really got me, like, you know what, I think this is what I'm gonna do. It was actually a combo. It was Seven, and then I saw Insomnia, which is a Christopher Nolan movie that is very, very underrated. It's probably his best one, honestly. Everybody talks about the other stuff, but to me, that's like my favorite one. Insomnia, when it came out in the 2000s, that's when I was like, yep, all right, we're doing this.
Good.
That's where I really wanted to like make a film.
Good. Sydney, influences.
So, just influences for my filmmaking or for
Yeah. Who influenced you?
I'm a huge Greta Gerwig fan.
Go
I
Barbie.
love her, yes. So I watch a lot of her films. You know, Lady Bird is one of my favorite films. I love coming of age films, so that's kind of just like my big influence. Like Edge of 17, Breakfast Club, 16 Candles, just like all those are my favorite. Yeah. I love John Hughes too.
Yeah.
Those are, he's also my favorite director. So I would say those are my two influences.
Good. Okay. All right. And Sean, influences.
Well, I don't have influencers in terms of, I looked at that person and that was a person that inspired me per se. I mean, when I was a kid, I read a lot of Stephen King. And then when the movies came out, I, watched the movie, compared it to the book, compare what was exciting about, Christine the movie versus Christine the book, Cujo, etc., Thinner. John Hughes is phenomenal. The idea that anybody would reboot any of John Hughes' films is a travesty. But for me, it's honestly, to your point, I watch a movie a day. As weird and as psychotic as that sounds, I watch a movie every single day of my life, and I always have. And when I'm watching them, I notice a scene or a way a person says something, either the words that they're saying, the tone that they use, the environment in which they're saying it, and like you said, you just get immersed in it, either in the shock, the surprise that you get from it, or just an emotional rush. There are scenes in movies that I've seen, no exaggeration, hundreds of times, Somewhere in Time with Christopher Reeve, and there's a scene in there where I will just bawl like a baby, and I know it's happening, but you just can't help it. It's there, and it's just, it's the moments in the films that I hope that I can emulate more so than the person that created it, because I know there are so many hands that create it. Is the angle right? Is the camera right? Are the actors doing what they're doing? The actresses are doing what they're doing. And the stories, all those pieces are there, and I can't say which component is what gives me that feeling, or whatever it is, that feeling that sticks with me for decades. And when you have something like that, that's the inspiration that goes, my God, that's amazing.
That collaborative effort
Yes.
is what brings it together. And a quick question. So do you watch movies or do you analyze movies?
Okay, so I used to watch and I used to tear apart. I'm a stickler for continuity, as Jackie can attest to. As I've stepped from, because I do acting, I do fight choreography, and now I'm doing writing and directing. And now that I'm on this side of the lens, I'm watching movies in a whole different way now.
See, babe, I'm analyzing movies. I'm not just watching movies. I'm not lazy. I'm analyzing movies. So
There are
then
some.
all of us are analyzing movies.
There are some films that my girlfriend will look at me and like, I can't believe you watched that. I'm like, you're right, but did you see that one scene?
Yes.
That scene, I want that scene.
Yes.
The rest
You
of
go
it,
back and watch
rest of it I can trash it, but that one scene I want it.
That's awesome. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So let's talk about, your writing styles, because all of you are so different. And one thing I want to also say, I want to commend you for being able to put pen to paper and then bring these stories to life. Especially, some of the films that we watch that are dealing with mental health issues right now, because that is so important. Again, as a Gen Xer, back in my day, you weren't allowed to talk about mental health, but now it is so important. So talk to me about your approach to writing certain subject matter that might be a little taboo. Let's start with let's go back with Sean. Let's start with you with Dreamcatcher. Dream Slasher, I'm sorry.
So there's two components to Dream Slashers. There's the surface area, and that's actually my house that we filmed in. And there's a corner in our bedroom, the master bedroom, that the light doesn't ever go to, so it's always dark. And I made a joking comment which scared the crap out of my girlfriend, that there could be somebody in the corner right there we couldn't see him with the light, so she freaks out now. But the story behind Dream Slasher, the idea behind Dream Slasher, is that each of us has the capacity to do evil. The most horrific thing you can ever imagine, all of us have the ability to do that. And it's either our moral compass, our upbringing, whatever you want to call it, spiritual guidance, just general morality, whatever you call it. That's what keeps us from doing that evil thing. It suppresses it inside. And if you notice in the film, Jackie's character, it was noted that she was not sleeping well. He was gone for 10 years and now he's back every single night. She's working constantly, day and nighttime. And so the idea behind it is if we let our guard down, that evil can actually expose itself.
Oh, that's deep. That's very deep, very deep. And one thing that I, again, talk to my students about is backstory. And it's not important just for the backstory of the character, but it's important for the backstory of the writer, because a lot of this stuff comes up from childhood. And that's really what a lot of you have been talking about, how you got started in film, why you got started in film, because of how you were raised or what you were raised on and things like that. Albert, talk to me about, how you approach ideas.
So I'm insane.
Yeah.
Let's just say that. I'm absolutely nuts. So I don't really approach it with any specific thing. You know what I mean? Like I'm not a big message guy. You know what I mean? Like I'm not like, there's things that I want to talk about, but for me, when I watch a film, the ones that intrigue me the most, or when I look at a story, the ones that intrigue me the most are the ones that don't treat me like I'm stupid. And so anything that's a moment in time is what I kind of gravitate towards. So I have a writing partner, and me and him will sit in a room, and I'll have an idea for a moment in time. So in case of Piper, for instance, we were sitting with Holland, and she was talking about how she didn't get a gig because of her voice, and then she said, stupid motherfucker, and I'm like, that's hilarious. The way she was just so pissed off at that moment. And it got me kind of thinking where in a moment of time of what if she just beat the crap out of the person in that room for telling her that, right? Just flat out telling her that thing. And then it spawned into this whole thing of what if she was a criminal, what if she was a vigilante and she was just stopping people, and then the one criminal that she caught has a problem with her voice, but she can literally murder them if she wanted to. But she just takes it and she ends up indulging them in this back and forth. And then it kind of became this thing of well, if nobody wants to give you a part for your voice, let's empower you and give you a part for your voice. So a lot of my stuff kind of ends up being like that. We're sitting and we're talking and then something happens and I'm like, huh. And then I start pulling from all the different movies that I've seen and things that I think it could go, and I'm like, I saw something like this on,
Kind of create your own
Jackie Chan's Twin Dragons, and they did a stupid spoof like that. And it gets my gears turning. I think where it becomes intimate for me is the actual dialogue piece. I am a dialogue stickler. If it doesn't sound natural, two people having a conversation, it drives me absolutely up the wall. And I think that's kind of what I share with Quentin Tarantino a little bit. Yeah. It's that rapid fire dialogue is my favorite piece. I don't like the back and forth unless it serves the story.
Okay.
And so for me, my process is more of all right, I have this moment in time. How do I make it bigger than what it is? And then me and my buddy will literally sit there. And I think if anybody's a young or a director and thinking about doing something and writing as well, I highly challenge you to sit with somebody and actually act out what you're writing, with them, because you start to realize you might have George Lucas syndrome, and everything just sounds really, really wooden.
Yeah.
And so I'm a big believer in sitting with somebody and firing off the idea and seeing how it acts and how it would play out in real life. And so that's kind of my process. It's really weird because it just comes out of the blue. I'll be driving one day and I'll call my business partner Mary and I'll be like, okay, I got this crazy idea that just popped in my head because I heard, I was listening to a score for a film that I like and it gave me an idea for something else. So maybe some of it's part of childhood drama.
Okay, good.
Pull from it, but a lot of it's situation.
Good. Okay, Chris, can you quickly tell us how you approach an idea?
Actually, I'm a little different than Albert because I think my stories all seem to have a message. Going back to even my TV pilot, Saving Little Z, that was not something that didn't fit in. And so with Unperfect, and when I was growing up as a kid, I didn't feel like I fit in. So I feel like those traumas do come out in writing a lot. And then when Unperfect, I wanted to tackle a mental illness. I really wanted to tackle that because I'm always trying to bring those to light. I know mental illness is big in this country and across the world, and I just want to make it aware that it's okay to talk. It's okay to talk about it. It's okay to show it. It's good to have these conversations about mental illness. So that's what I, through the film, make that the conversation. And that's where it came with Stanley having schizophrenic tendencies there. He lost his mother when he was young, and he was trying to replace her with that. So it was again, another loss. Going back a little further, I come from the medical field in the fire department. I'm a retired firefighter, so all these films, I just want to try to help people in a way. Not every film, I guess, but I mean, I do like to have a good message going across. But they do come from like sometimes just a scene.
Yeah.
Just like you, like, oh, that corner of the room, I'm like, there's something. Yeah. So I completely get where you're coming with that. And Albert, like, just talking about stuff, and all of a sudden you're like, that's perfect.
Thank you, Chris. Cindy.
So with this film specifically, I wanted to do the message of like your found family and how your friends can help you out in your darkest times. And my two characters, Holly and June, they come from different backgrounds. So June, she has a more like optimistic outlook on life. She lives with her brother, her parents passed away, but she's in different circumstances, but she has adapted and has found the good in her life. And she really wants to help Holly because she is in the depths of the darkest times of her life. And I really wanted to just explore how your friends can help you if your family, if you're in that situation. And I also wanted to touch on, so Holly, at the end, she has like suicidal tendencies. She's talking about how she doesn't belong. And I think that scene really means a lot to me because I want everyone to know that you're not alone and that your friends can help you and there's always going to be someone there for you.
That's great. That's powerful. And again, I commend your generation for being so brave to even stand up and tackle, issues like this nowadays. Because again, Gen X, we weren't allowed to do that growing up. So again, thank you. Last but not least, Amelia, tell us, quickly how you approach an idea.
It starts with a note in my iPhone, and it's like usually just a line that I was like, that's funny. And then I keep going, and then when I write a script, I write a first draft, and that's it. And then I lie to people and say it's only the first draft, even though it's like the 50th version. What I do after a certain point, after I write a script, is I make a pitch deck for it. Because if I can't sell it, then I shouldn't continue writing it. Because if it's not going to go anywhere, then it's a waste of everybody's time. That's interesting. That's my mean side coming out, but I have like 30 scripts in the chamber, but half of them will never make it. So the other half that has an audience, that has audiences built in and stuff, that's what I try to focus on. The ones that I feel like can make it, that can get out there. And then after that, I try to get with friends or try to pull as many favors as I can and make a film where I self-fund it. That's kind of what I do. I work a day job like so many other people. And I write my scripts during my lunch break, so I have 30 minutes to make it as quickly as possible. So I write like 5-6 pages in that 30 minutes, and then it's terrible. And then at the end of the day, I polish it up and we're good.
Gotcha. Okay, all right. Well, at least you have other scripts out there, because when you meet with a producer, you meet with a potential buyer, they're going to say, what else you got? So that's great. So let's open it up for Q&A right now. Do we have any questions for the panel? Don't be shy. Anyone? Bueller? Yes, yes, ma'am. Zamora, welcome. Zamora's one of my students. Thank you for coming.
So how do you guys get out of your own way? Like, how do you get through imposter syndrome?
Do you have imposter syndrome?
Yeah.
The quick answer.
Quick answer.
Very quick.
I'm writing for myself, so as long as I like it, that's all that matters.
All right. Anyone else want to answer that?
I don't necessarily think it's imposter syndrome, but there is a moment where you might feel like, what are you doing? Like, and then you start to overanalyze it. For me, it's trusting the people that you hired to do the work. So for me, I tend to rely on my actors really, really heavy. Like I give them a synopsis of what's going on, and Chris has been with me on sets. Like I give them a synopsis of what's going on, but I really use their talents to kind of pick up that load. Because as a director or a filmmaker, I think one of the biggest setbacks that we have is we tend to overanalyze our work to see if it's good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And then we start picking apart things that were good because we're so neurotic about what we're wanting to do. And I think that a lot of filmmakers, they tend to make the mistake of, I'm a director, so I'm going to tell people what to do. And that's a really, really like first year mistake. It's more of I'm a director and how do I lead the people that I'm working with to help me create this vision. And so the way I get away from it is collaboration. Like I collaborate with my actor, I collaborate with the cinematographer, which unfortunately is always me. But I collaborate with everybody that's around, and that helps me overcome that piece. Believe it or not, I ask my wife to watch my movies, like on an edit, and she just tells me bluntly, like, yeah, this is horrible. And then I get back with the talent, and I'm like, what do you think of this is, and that is. And that helps you stay away from that, like, in your head piece, and then ground you a little bit.
That's good. Chris, did you want to answer that?
Yeah, just real quickly, I think for my writing, just knowing that those first few drafts are gonna be crappy, because I'm always so hard on myself. I'm like, why is this like crap right from the beginning? But just knowing that everybody has this process, that's everything is gonna be crappy in the beginning, and then it will get better as you do more drafts and more drafts. As the films that I've done, I can look back through and there's cringy parts that are all the way through it, and just know that that's going to be okay. It's always going to be something that you want to tweak, and it's just being okay with this is what's the product you made, and that you accomplished that goal. Because I do. I definitely have that imposter syndrome every once in a while, too, all the time actually. So it's just knowing that just keep pushing forward. Keep pushing forward. You're not alone in that realm at all.
Yeah, it's a process, and you have to enjoy the journey. And one thing, and these two, hate for me to bring them up, but Lenny and Sevilla LaRusso created Orlando Independent Filmmakers, where it's a safe place for people who have no knowledge about filmmaking, who are interested in filmmaking, getting involved in filmmaking though, and they can go and they can learn, from the bottom up. And year one, they may be learning about everything. Year three, they may be directing their own films. So, again, round of applause to Lenny and Sevilla. Other questions? Yes.
Okay, Howard. So when you do your fight choreography, do you include the fight choreography in the script, or do you use a separate storyboard for the fight choreography, and you just put it in the script and direct it to that particular storyboard?
So,
Good question.
so if I was writing, it depends on how I'm writing it. So my fight choreography is usually done, the script has the high points of the fight choreography. So like, actor A punches actor B with a sweeping kick, right?
Parts that are important to the
Yeah,
narrative.
important to the narrative to get them from where they are in their position to the next part. Because and when it comes to the script, I'm really visual when I write. So
that's like
yeah,
a storyboard.
yep, and then
That makes sense.
I actually video storyboard. So I'll get the actors together. If I'm working with the stunt coordinator, I'll get the stunt coordinator together, and then what we'll actually do is we'll actually work with it and then visually film it, like on an iPhone or something like that. And that's kind of how we do it. We do a rough draft with different angles, different types of punches, kicks. And then in the editing bay is where I can sit, just put it really quick together and see what works and see what doesn't. And then I share that with the actors so they see what they're going to be doing. And so action's really, really tricky because depending on the type of action that you're doing, that's gonna depend on how you have to relay that information. So if it's just a one-on-one fight, the script doesn't really need to relay that because you're gonna practice that anyway. That's already in your storyboard.
How much freedom do you give your actors?
A lot, a tremendous amount actually. So I have a big rule of, because for me, if you like back to that, like if you put too much constraint on an actor, not every actor is an action star. You know what I'm saying? Like especially in the local scene. So you got to kind of work with the constraint already. So to constrain them any further would kind of hinder what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And so you got to use their strengths and their weaknesses like as like a push. But to answer your question, like if it's a one-on-one, I'll be really descriptive. If it's, I'll be really not so descriptive. If it's like a big action set piece where there's multiple moving parts, I'll only put the key portions in there and then work with the crew in a visual storyboard.
It's good.
Yeah. So, no, I mean, if you do, that's fine. I mean, like the more descriptive you can be, especially in the context headings, to like display your scene. Like, there's a real like, when we think of scripts, you know, when we're writing scripts for ourselves and as filmmakers that are going to make the film, the script doesn't need to be like you're trying to sell it. The script needs to be, well, how much information can I convey to my actors? Like, do they get the whole story from the beginning to the end? And is there enough wiggle room to go back to your point of, am I giving them enough freedom to play with it? Because for me, when I get an actor or an actress or a stunt coordinator or somebody like that, I'm using them for their skill. And so I want their input and I want them to have the flexibility to play with it and make the character their own. And so, yeah, be as descriptive as possible unless it's not needed. That's pretty
Good, good, good. Thank you, thank you. Other questions? Other questions?
Cheat sheets?
What's that?
Up here in the cheat sheets.
Oh, hey! Yes, yes. Question.
Emilio, Forest of Fools, many wonderful moments in that
Thank you.
piece. Very, very good. What was the technology when you transitioned into the studio for getting your backdrop?
That was it's not a virtual stage, but it was a giant LED screen
Really?
that they used for like DJs and stuff. I know the owner of the studio there, and he was like, "Yeah, you can use it."
That dolphin?
Yeah, it's Dolphin Image Studios. It's there at the very end. We mentioned them in the credits.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, exceptional. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, sorry. I was gonna say like because they were like talking about like around the time we shot it was like, oh, the Mandalorian, the technology's there, and I'm like, oh yeah, we can do that. Let's go. Let's do this. And then it's like, oh, it doesn't look exactly like the outside, and why don't we just walk outside and shoot it?
Think very creative as a short filmmaker, yeah. Other questions?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
When you're on your 20th draft, how do you know it's improving? Like,
Well, when I read it and I go, hell yeah. And it's like, that's the fire right there. I'm like, And, like, especially when I'm like proud of it enough to like show other people. Obviously, they have to sign the NDA first. But if I'm proud enough to show another person, it's usually because like we're getting close to that point where it's like, okay, the dialogue is tight, the world's been built, this could be bigger than what it is currently, the pitch deck is probably almost done, and bada bing, bada boom. Like, you know it when you know it, you know? You know?
Anyone else want to answer that? Anyone else want to answer that? How do you know when it's done?
Yeah. Albert can answer for me. Mine is when I just send it out to people that I know, that I trust, and they read it and they're like, "This is good." So hopefully they're not lying to me, but I tend to trust them because you're out of your 20 drafts and you're like, "Please tell me it's good at this point." So that's when. But I think, like to Mio's point, you just kind of know when you know when it flows good, the dialogue seems natural to Albert's point, because a lot of it gets choppy sometimes. It's choppy when you're first getting it down, because you just want to get it down so you go back and fix it later. So just when it flows really well, and then when I have people that have read it that have yeah, and then you get those notes, and there's always those tweaks throughout it. Even the day of the shooting, or when you're on set or right before, you sometimes you'll have to be changing stuff day of, because it's just not working, not flowing right. So just be ready to be okay to change it at any moment there.
Yep.
It needs to be.
I Okay, great. Other questions? Other questions?
Yes, I had a question. How long are your scripts? Like, do you know when the script is ended and it's done? Like, how many pages and what is the website or the program that you're using to write the script?
Good questions, good questions. Would you say that most of you probably use Final Draft for Celtics?
I use Celtics, yeah.
Writer Duet? Writer Duet?
Final
Okay.
Draft on my iPhone.
Final Draft on your iPhone?
No,
You got those
not
young
mine.
eyes.
No, the Notes application on my iPhone, that's where I write a lot of it, and then I take it into Final Draft 12 because 12 is my favorite version of it.
Yes.
And yeah. What was the other question? I didn't.
Page numbers, page numbers.
When I'm doing most scripts, they're gonna be between 9 and 15 pages. And then if I have faith in it and I've made the pitch deck for it, that's when I'm trying to get it to, I think, 90 to 120. I have like 2 scripts that are at the 90 mark, 1 script at the 60, and I mean,
For your
they're just
features.
done when they're done.
Others?
I would honestly say I don't really put a page number on how long the script should be. I know that's kind of like a goal, like a little bit of a unsaid rule of like, a minute a page, something along those lines. But it depends on what the scene is and what you're doing. Like 1 page could be literally 4 minutes of film in that sense. And so,
Because of action.
I kind of just write it to where it makes sense, and however many pages it lands on is what it lands on. You tend to cut a lot of fat out as you go. So as you go on the second, third draft, I personally never go over a third draft, because we really pick apart the first and the second, like heavy. And so by the third draft, it's kind of like already cemented and a lot of that extra weight's cut out of it. But yeah, I wouldn't say stick yourself to like how many pages is your script. I would say more like, is the information you're trying to convey coming across concisely? Because you could have a 9-minute script and a 9-page script and it could be a 40-minute scene, you know what I mean? So like, it's more along the lines of just like what's in it. You go to the start.
Good, thank you, Albert, thank you. Other questions?
Personally, I'm a Celtics guy. One of the folks that's had it so long that I think I'm only paying $4.99 a month. But anyway, the question I had was for everybody on the panel, which was, how are you funding your films?
I'm funding it with money. A lot of it's self-funded, some of it is crowd-funded, some of it I get an investor if I'm lucky, but mostly it's self-funded. But that's a lot of short films is self-funded because it's hard to convince someone to put like 10 grand or 5 grand into a script. I don't know, it just is.
Without a guarantee of return?
Without a guarantee of return.
Yeah, would most of you say you self-fund, crowd-fund?
Yeah, self-funding for me. My TV pilot I shot was an investor, but I did try to crowdfund and I failed miserably, so it's not easy to do. But yeah, self-funding.
Sydney, as a college student, are you self-funding or crowdfunding?
So I try to crowdfund, and then whatever I don't make from crowdfunding, I fund myself. Yeah, and then UCF has a lot of great resources for students, so I take advantage of those.
That's good, that's good. All right, other questions? We have time for probably about 2 more questions here.
Lenny,
Whoa, where?
Where? So great.
Here.
Lenny. Come on.
Hold on.
Hello, my name is Matt, and my question is, did y'all have any other aspirations before you wanted to be filmmakers? Like, was there anything in life that, changed your mind, like, oh, now I need to go into film, or was it something that you just always wanted to do?
All right, quick answers here. What,
I wanted to do
any other
commercials.
plan Bs?
I wanted to do commercials, and I still technically do that. It's my day job. I work at a branding agency to do commercials. I also, these are quick questions. Never mind, sorry.
I'm actually a software developer in my real life, and just started doing this a couple years ago. Like I said, I got an opportunity, I dove in. I was raised with the idea that if an opportunity presents itself, you take it, and if you fall flat on your face, at least you took a chance. So I did it. It landed well. Been doing local films, feature films all across the country. I travel on the weekends to go film, and my friends think I'm an idiot for doing it, but it's just life, and I love it. I would never, ever change it for the world.
Software engineer. That's why you're so damn mellow. Okay, got you.
You don't understand what I'm doing.
Yeah. Sydney, real quick.
I wanted to be a photographer because that's what I did in high school, and then UCF didn't have photography, so then I was like, film, and now I love film.
All right, Chris, quickly.
Yeah, because I was in the fire department, and then I started I got into acting and stunt work, and then I did a stand-in for a feature film around here back in early 2000s, and being a stand-in, you're watching a lot of the crew working, so I was like, oh my god, I want to do behind the camera, so then I went to school for that for a little while. So, and then I haven't changed my mind since. I love being behind the camera, and I would never change it.
That's beautiful. And Albert, last but not least, quickly.
I was wanted to be a musician. Actually, after I got out of the army, I went in for orchestration, and then a film program opened up at the college that I was at, and I decided, you know what, let me take a look, and that was it. I went straight for that. I originally went in for music and film, and then I was really good behind the camera, and I decided to do cinematography.
Nice, nice. Okay. Yes, sir.
All of your films are absolutely fabulous. Just so much effort went into them. I'm curious how many days of production you each did for your films, because a lot of effort was shown there.
Does pre-production count?
No, like actually in front of the camera. How much production?
Principal photography.
Oh, so 2 days.
2 days?
1 day.
1 day. Sydney?
3 days.
3 days. Chris?
3 days.
10 hours.
10 hours. Wow. Man.
10 hours.
Right.
One full day, 4 hours, one scene, 4.5 the next.
That's great planning.
Right.
That is great planning right there. Okay, so I think we can take one more question. One more question. How about right here?
Okay, how long did it take you guys to actually write your script?
Piper took, okay, so this is not like bloating. Piper just took like 6 hours of me and my buddy sitting in there. Because the action piece was easy. It was the dialogue, and the dialogue is technically only 3 minutes of the film.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Chris?
If you looked in my computer, you'd see many files of like different iterations of it with different names. It went through months of me just trying to work that to the way I wanted it to get it there.
Okay, Sydney?
To like physically write it, it probably took me like 2 days to write the whole plot, and then going and revising, was it like 2 months, just because it was for my class, so there was a lot of peer review and, you know, all that.
All right, Sean.
Dream Slasher from a calendar perspective, maybe 3 weeks, but I'll write when I get an urge, and then I'll stop when the urge goes away, so I don't want to force myself when that excitement goes. So there's been times when I've been literally watching my girlfriend's son play baseball, and I'll be like, ooh, so I break out my phone.
Yeah.
Right there. It is what it is.
Such a great feeling when your characters start talking to you, right? Yes. Emilio?
A range, so like between 2 hours and 2 weeks, so that one of those type of thing. Well, for Forest of Fools, the first draft was done in like 2-3 hours, but I hated it and everybody hated it. So technically, that wasn't really done. So just going back and forth, making it about 2 weeks. I basically, when the OIF had the announcement for the competition, and I think it was at the Christmas party, and I was like, hell yeah, I got this. I told my friend Tony, I'm like, I'm gonna write you a script, don't worry. And then, then we started, I wrote in while we were there, and then for over 2 weeks, I just started having him read it to me. I was like, hey, read it to me. Nah, let's do it again.
All right. So quickly, because we have some future filmmakers out here, quick advice. Give me, very quickly in maybe like 5 seconds, what's some advice that you would give to future filmmakers?
Write a pitch deck.
Write a pitch deck. Sean?
Have 2 points. Have the thickest skin imaginable, because if you have thin skin, you will not survive, and don't ever, 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 ever quit.
Yes, so true. Sydney?
Believe in yourself and surround yourself with other creatives.
Chris?
Just get out there and do it, and just keep writing. And write what you know. Write what you know. You know, that writing what you know is what you have experienced in your life experience. So, because I've had people ask me, like, I don't know what to write. You do. It's in there. It really is in there. You have life experience.
Yeah.
So, just
Albert?
just do it.
Study film, watch movies as much as you can, and don't waste your shot on a wide.
Okay.
That is my go-to.
And with that, I want to thank Albert Gonzalez, Chris Ballinger, Sydney Carlson, Sean Thompson, and Emilio Roman. Thank you to Orlando Independent Filmmakers. Thank you to Lovely Short.